Artificial intelligence and social media are here to stay. So how can we live with them safely? And with us now is Adam Chiara. He is a professor at the University of Hartford and a specialist in social media, AI, and all sorts of things. So, Professor Chiara, great to see you here today.
Yes, thanks, Dennis. Thanks for having me.
Well, first of all, I want to ask you, for those of us who don't really understand, there are some viewers out there who are like, what exactly is artificial intelligence? What is it?
All right, let's break it down into simple terms. It's a computer program, and it's been trained by programmers to think, and I'm using that word loosely, but it's given context. And with that context, it makes what I call predictions, outcomes. So a user is going to ask it a question. With the information that it's given, it's saying, well, what is this user looking for? And it will produce some kind of outcome for that user.
So I get a question from viewers. Is it automatically like on your computer if you don't look for it?
There are programs that are just artificial intelligence programs, but what's happening more, Dennis, and what's more likely is that it's being built into things that we're using every day.
Such as?
Let me give you an example. Sure, Amazon, right? So if you're an Amazon user and you go down and you read those reviews like I like to do, you might have noticed recently what they do is at the top now they have a little blurb, and it will say something like, users of this think that the quality is good, but they think it's a little pricey for it, and it gives a few sentences, and you'll see at the bottom it says, this was generated by AI. That AI is taking a look at all those thousands of comments. That's the data set. That's the initial information. It's given context. The programmers in Amazon said, hey, figure out what is going to be helpful for a user. And it's producing an outcome, a prediction, what that user thinks they're going to want to know about the product. And so that's just one example, but it's constantly now being built into programs that we're using. We might not even really be aware of it.
Wow. In simple terms, what's the benefit of AI?
Well, I mean, that was one right there, right? I don't want to read through thousands of...
No, but like to use it in your daily life. You hear stories about, kids being able to write stories about it and pictures and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, what I like to think is it does synthesize information. It can make very complex issues simple for us. And we don't really know, this is just the scratching the surface. We're in just the beginning. We don't really know how beneficial it can be in the future. I mean, here's another example, not one that we're using every day, but they'll use AI now in farming to figure out where should seeds be planted, right? They've been trained to figure out when seeds get planted where do they die, where do they not, how much water does it need. The AI can figure this out and tell farmers where exactly to plant these seeds, and they're much more successful with crop rates, right? And so that's just one example. We wouldn't think about that, but it's making food production much better for us. Of course, as you said, there's also a lot of negatives. With the good comes the negatives too.
Yeah, lawmakers are trying to crack down on some of this because, for example, just recently there was some inappropriate pictures of Taylor Swift that were not her. They were AI generated out there. How do you stop things like that?
Well, you can't right now. And I mean, I know that sounds very concerning, and it is, because some states have made some laws and regulations, but there's no federal laws banning deep fakes, what we call them. And people right now have the access to these programs, and it's become, these have existed for years. What's changed is it's become much more mainstream and easy to use, and we have social media to spread it. And so right now, since there are no laws and regulations, people are able to create them and spread them quickly, and no one's stopping them. So right now, there's nothing we can do.
If Senator Blumenthal and Senator Murphy asked your advice on what they should do, what would you tell them?
I do think that, well, first of all, we need to be talking about it more and trying to figure out what regulations make sense. I actually am a believer in regulation, at least for right now, for slowing it down. I think that we can't, right now, it shouldn't just be an open check where anybody can be able to create these. I kind of like the idea of licensing it, right? Have some kind of certification. And then if you are using it, and you're found to not have this certification and you're using it for nefarious reasons, some kind of penalty. And again, I'm not the lawmaker, so I don't know what that means. I can't give it an exact of what I think, but right now, there are no consequences for some of these actions, and I think there needs to be some safeguards here.
Have you seen any of your students writing things, projects, reports, homework on using AI? And is that okay?
Like using the program?
Yes.
Yes, I have. I think it's okay if there's context, if that is allowed. Right now, there's certain times where maybe it's like, let's play around with this. Let's see how it can be used as a tool. If it's just used to create something out of nowhere when that was not asked for, and you haven't used your critical thinking skills to produce the work, then no. And I have had that conversation before with students.
I want to shift gears a little bit to social media, because speaking of the senators, they want to be grilling the heads of X and Facebook and Instagram. They want to keep an eye on the effect that this is having on children. What kind of damage is society doing to youngsters because of social media?
Well, and I'll now take it a step further even, Dennis. With social media now putting in AI, it's very scary. And I will also say more specifically even for young girls and women, there's been cases, we've heard of one of a 14-year-old girl who had deepfake of pornographic images of herself. She's in high school, spread around her school. And it's spread around social media, you know, and so you think about what that could do for you as a 14-year-old girl, and again, you know, there's no way of stop. They cannot just instantly stop it. They can. It has not been where there's a safeguard where it's stopped before it spreads, and that's a problem.
Is it possible to track down who did that?
In some cases, yes, but in others, there are very savvy people out there that are able to escape this. You know, for example, Taylor Swift, and I'm sure we know in the news how this is going around. It's not so simple just to find where this person came from and find the original source. Could it be done? Probably, right? But it's not just like, okay, let's just type in something and here it is. And so without these, and that's where I go back to like the licensing of it, without being able to know who has this power, how they're using this power, you're going to have cases like this. And some people say that's okay, that's part of it, let it evolve. I say, to me right now, it's a little too scary thinking of what the damage it could do to some people along the way.
This has been eye-opening insight from Adam Chiara from the University of Hartford. Thank you so much for your time today, and best of luck. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Dennis. I appreciate it.
In a moment, a big movie premiere and keeping public buildings safer.